You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hella Well with Danielle podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Washington, and there are times when your old tried and true self-care routine just ain't hidden anymore. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've experienced a block in that. And that's something I wanted to talk about this week because I'm like, why is it when I'm trying to do self-care, it doesn't feel like it's working? And I don't know if you're like me, but like if there was a pill, I don't like taking medications. I'll be the first one to take medications. My doctors could prove to that I don't like taking medication. But if there was a pill that you could take every day that would take away stress, anxiety, give you courage, takes away fear and any of those type of things, I kind of would take that. I would take something that would reduce my stress, keep me relaxed, keep me I would take something. Period. I would take that every day. Faithful. You'd maybe have my face on a bottle because I'm like, I love this so much. I'm not just the user. I'm the president of this company. But there's not. There is no magic pill that we can take to take away our stress, to take away our anxiety, our fears, to get us to not self-sabotage. But there's things we can do. But reality sometimes, that changes. It just changes what is working. And you may feel defeated and like, oh man, like when you realize that these things aren't working, you can go to the mindset like, oh, this isn't working. My life just must be so effed up that nothing is working, versus thinking things are changing or the situation, what used to work ain't working anymore. So maybe that means that the system is broken. I think we forget that. Like oftentimes these self-care routines that we create are honestly Band-Aids. They're Band-Aids to a problem that is deeper that we're not really always paying attention to. And that was something I had to kind of remind myself that me doing my little Band-Aids of self-care are Band-Aids. It doesn't mean that it's fixing the root of the problem and getting to it. Is just covering and masking it so I can get by just another day, another week, or another month. And I don't think we always think about that when our self-care isn't working. We don't kind of go back to the memories like, wait a second, oh yeah, this is just a Band-Aid. So why am I freaking out when the Band-Aid's not working, when I'm not getting to the root of the situation? Because a lot of times the system's broke. We're working in situations where we're in environments that need to change. We're in society things that need to change. How it is to be treated as a Black woman in America, it has not changed. Maybe it's changed a little bit, but has it changed from 2022, from 2021? Not so much. So the structural changes in how society sees you as a woman of color hasn't changed. And so you're still trying to make self-care Band-Aids in a system that's broken. When you're in toxic relationships, you're trying to make self-care Band-Aids in a relationship that is toxic and broken. When you're shoulding all over yourself, and I say the shoulds, as I like to use, is like, I should be here. I should be better in my business. I should, be married by now. I should have kids right now. I should know better about this. When you're shoulding all over yourselves and not getting to the root of why you have those shoulds, you're working in a broken system. And when you don't acknowledge that you're putting self-care Band-Aids on a broken system and then wondering why this ain't working, well, sis, it ain't working because you're trying to put a Band-Aid on a broken system. And that's something I had to remind myself that, oh yeah, these Band-Aids aren't working. I like this brand of Band-Aids. It's basically like this. These brand of band-aids, these self-care band-aids, this brand of self-care band-aids is not working anymore. It's like hair products. You know, when you have a good hair product, it's working. Your hair looks good. The curls are popping just right. And then months or weeks or years later, it's like, oh, this isn't working the way it used to. Like my hair used to feel a certain way when I use these products. It's no longer working. But that's like your self-care. And it's okay. You've switched your hair products without kind of crying over it and like the world is over. I don't know what else to do. Ayana, come fix my life. No, you just switched products. And that's the same thing you need to think about your self-care. It's just sometimes you need to switch the product of Band-Aids, Band-Aids, Band-Aids and Band-Aids. I'm having words with that, issues with that. You need to change your methods of self-care without beating yourself up. Because let's be honest, one of the things that stops many of us from implementing self-care that really works for us is that we're working on E. We are mad empty from working hella hours. And when we're not working, we're taking care of other people. We're doing for everyone else but ourselves. And when it comes to ourselves, it's like, no, I don't have time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the capacity to find the right self-care that's going to work for me. And so sometimes you use things that used to work. Like for me, what used to work was binge watching Netflix. And I used to love binge watching Netflix or any other streaming services. And then it came to a point where I was like, I would do it. And I'm like, I don't feel better. Yeah, of course I'm stopping from whatever I'm doing, but I'm not getting the feeling I need. I don't feel recharged. I don't feel resourced. I don't feel rested. I feel like I'm just here and I might have paused the stress button a little bit, but it's not hitting the way it used to hit. Travel's the same thing. I talk about travel as my form of therapy, but when I wasn't using travel in the way I'm currently using travel, there was a point where I was traveling and I'm like, well, why do I feel rested? Like I just came back from Belize and had this amazing trip according to my Instagram feed, but I don't feel rested. I don't feel resourced. I don't feel recharged. I don't feel I don't feel happy because I wasn't using travel in a way that worked for me in terms of self-care. I was using travel as it was helping my business. I was taking pictures. I was getting content. I was meeting people. I was looking at places for, upcoming trips. I wasn't using it in a way that I needed at this time in my life or at that point when I was taking the trip for it to recharge, resource, and relax me. And so again, the same things you're using, it can be the fact that the way you're using it, it doesn't mean that the actual thing that you're doing is wrong. It just might be the way. And so like for me, travel, it still works for me. It's just the way I go about traveling. Like when I went to Mexico recently, first part of the trip, perfect example. I wasn't using it in a way that was relaxing and resourcing to me. I was using it in a way like, oh, I'm away. Automatically, this should be point. I should be feeling wonderful right now. And I'm not because I was working on a bunch of different things. I was in my room on the computer doing all these things and all these trainings when I wasn't outside. When for me, what I realized through this trip again is that it's not about being in the location. For me, the relaxing part of travel is, and the resourcing part and the part that gives me joy and re-energizes me is being in nature. I need to be outdoors. And that's what travel means to me. Oftentimes it means me being outdoors and not being inside. Because like when I'm in California, I find myself being inside all the time. And so shifting how I thought about travel in that trip from the beginning of the trip to the end of the trip was a game changer for me. But I don't think we think about those things, and we don't think about sometimes I'm just on E and it's hard to do self-care. And when you have those moments, I ask of you, I beg of you, I plead of you. I'm like, baby, please. Yo, sis, give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace and some compassion. Acknowledge that it's just not happening right now. Acknowledging that, yeah, I may want to do something. I want to pour into myself and I know I need to do better. But right now, I don't have it in me to just do that. And give yourself the grace without beating yourself up about that. And also recognize that, why sometimes your self-care isn't working is because your stressors have changed. For me, going into caregiving on a larger level and increasing the level that's a part of my life is a stressor I didn't have 5 years ago, on a stressor I didn't have 2 years ago to that level. And so for me to wonder why my self-care routine 2 years ago isn't working now is because my stressors have changed. My level of stress has increased in different ways or has changed. So that means that my self-care band-aids need to change. And it may be for other people, the pandemic and how people are working. Like a lot of people are working from home, which sounds great and it can be great. But working from home for a lot of people also means that the boss thinks that you're constantly on because girl's at home. So why is she answering emails on Saturday? Or why didn't she answer emails at 10 o'clock versus when before COVID and the pandemic, when you had the work hours, when you weren't working, when you were at home, it was deemed as the safety zone. Now there really isn't a safety zone. So that added stress of how society is showing up and the new norm in this post-pandemic world is adding different stressors that you didn't have 2 years ago, 5 years ago. And so that means that you need to change how you show up in your self-care routine. And that also explains, again, why sometimes the stuff you were used to work, taking a bath used to work, going to get your nails used to work, and it's not working anymore. It could be mean. The simple thing is like you getting your nails used to be a thing that used to work for you. Could be a simple thing like you now get stressed about going because you're worried about getting COVID, but hadn't tied the two together. So I tell people, think about what's new, not just, okay, why isn't my self-care routines not working, but what's changed in your life? Are there new stressors that have been adding to it? Are there reasons why you're, besides external reasons that are adding to why your self-care routines aren't working? And then ask yourself, what do I need? How often do we ask ourselves, what is it that I really need in this moment? Not generally, what do I need in life? Yes, I need great sex. I want, an amazing job. I want customers. I want all these different things. Plug on that one. Making sure that you all also know that, I do Reiki services and I help with these type of things. So if you have never had a Reiki session, I highly encourage you to try one because it's great at, again, clearing out some of these emotions, giving you clarity and giving that deep relaxation that, we go to for other things. And I could do this in 45 minutes. So make sure you go to the website for that. But back to the website, back to the plug. What do I really need at this moment? What do I really need? What do I really need at this time? A bath may not be it. I mean, baths work. I love a bath, but sometimes a bath doesn't fix. If my situation is I need intellectual stimulation, a bath is probably not going to work. If I need, I don't know, is it your diet that's affecting you? If you're looking at what you're eating and putting into your body and that's changed or it may need to change, that may be something that you need right now. I may need to change my diet. For me, I know sometimes I really need to pour in on the greens because I like vegetables. I won't lie, I do like vegetables. But there's times where I really love me some cheese, which is why it's hard for me to be fully vegan. But I love cheese, and then my body was in the situation where I was anemic, and at the time I needed more iron, and so I was craving more iron. In theory, my body is craving iron, but I'm going for the cheese, and so my body is saying iron, iron, iron. My head's saying cheese, 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 and what I really needed in that moment was iron to care for myself, but I was not paying attention to the signs. So, think about it. Getting to the roots of what is it that you really need now. Is it something that's affecting is your diet affecting your self-care, your mood, your well-being? Investigate the people around you. Do you need to do some, is there some boundaries that need to happen? Do you need to shift what's around you? Do you need to just have no one around you? When I investigated kind of what is my surrounding and who are the people around me, yeah, I had to change a couple of things. And I've had to do this several times in my life. And I think this is something I will constantly, and we all should constantly do, is reevaluate who's around you. Because how you're showing up around other people, or how the people that are around you, affects how you show up. So if you're around a bunch of people who are gossiping or, always negative and life is horrible, they're in victim mode, or you always got to help them out and they're not pouring back into you, that's going to affect your self-care, your well-being. And it's a Band-Aid that may need to be ripped off, switched out, and never seen ever again, tossed in the trash. I'm just saying, because you have people in your life that you think are good for you, but are they? Are they really good for you? Are they pouring into you? Are they causing you more stress than actual love? And if that's the case, maybe it's time to think about, should they be in my life? But also ask yourself, do you struggle with recognizing your worth? Are you having a hard time loving what you see in the mirror? And if that's the case, that's something, a need that you may need to be working on right now. That's what you really need to in this moment. It may be to understand your worth. Why aren't you loving what you see in the mirror? What can be done? Are you constantly tired? And if so, why? And asking yourself in all of these different questions and self-analysis is, what role am I playing? Because we all play a role. We may think it's all these external factors, and there are external factors. But at the end of the day, we all play a role in how we show up in our self-care. And are we recognizing that something needs to shift? If you're blind to the fact that these things are happening in your life that aren't no longer working, then yeah, you are playing a role in why your self-care ain't working, because you're not paying attention to the signs that this ain't hidden anymore. Like, I don't know why I went into a good sex moment, but yeah, we're going to go with it. You're just having amazing sex, and the sex with the person is amazing. Each time it's great. And then it just gets into a rut of, this used to be really good, and now it's just seems so basic AF. Do you stick with it? I mean, if you're married, probably, but if you're not, but it's one of those things like, you a choice. You can stick with basic and it's not hitting, it's not working for you. You can stay in that situation. You can keep it as is, or you can do things to make shifts, whether it's the person shifting what you do, but it's a choice. And that goes with your self-care. It's a choice. Like when my travel situation wasn't working for self-care, it was a choice of what am I going to do, because I need to pour in a different way. And I needed to think, what kind of self-care did I need at that moment? And I talked about it before. It's like, do you need intellectual stimulation? Do you need physical touch? Do you need to be in nature? Do you need laughter? Do you need rest? Do you need boundaries? Like, there are different types of self-care that we need. So recognizing what is it that you really need now. Like for me, when there's moments when I need to laugh. I call my friend Tania. My friend Tania will make me laugh. I don't think we have any like hardcore girl, the world's ending conversations, but when I need a good laugh, I need to just to feel joyful, that's who I call. And I know without a doubt, I'm going to have an amazing conversation, and I'm going to laugh at least probably 4 to 5 times, even if it's only for 3 minutes, because that's the relationship I have. And I know that's a good self-care for me. So when I really need to laugh, I have that. And when it doesn't work, which I hope it never stops working, but if it doesn't work, I find something else that makes me laugh. When my self-care need is laughter, I have a list of things that I need. When I need intellectual stimulation, I have a list of things I need. And that's a great thing to do is if you don't have these things, start writing it out. Start going back to the basics. What is it that brought you joy as a kid? What organically warms your heart, brings you joy, brings that smile to your face, and you're like, oh yeah. Like little things for me, it's like certain foods bring me joy because it brings me back. When I think of tostones, I love tostones. It's not anything that's grand. It's not like it's some 5-star Michelin restaurant situation. But tostones brings me joy because it brings me back to moments in being in Cuba. It brings me back to moments with my girlfriend Ariana when we first went to Puerto Rico the first time and the fun we had trying to run up a hill to get to this waterfall before it closed and all these different things. So tostones brings me joy and self-care because it brings me back to a place that was joyful. And so sometimes for me, food can do that. But figuring out what organically warms your heart and brings you a smile. And what do you like? Not what society tells you should like for self-care or what society tells you should be the thing you should do to relax. What do you like? Self-care, like a pair of jeans, it's custom. What fits for me may not fit for you, but you got to know you and be aware of you and listen to the signs when, okay, this ain't hitting anymore. What can it change? What is hitting? What is it that I need? And so for me, I'm in a space where things weren't working and it was time to make some shifts and more to come on that because I am shifting as a person. I'm just different. Like even talking to my parents recently and dealing with them, with taking them, we went to Atlanta for my niece's graduation from Clark Atlanta University. And they were showing up and my brother was showing up in the old ways of this is what we're used to, Danielle. We're used to abusing her this way. And my self-care and my personal needs, like, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not there where I used to be. So when you try to show up in a way of being abusive towards me, my instinct is like, sweetie, this is what we're not about to do. And my self-care in those moments versus me lashing out, which probably was my self-care, I go into a quieter space where I meditate. I've found things that work for me in those situations. So a lot's coming. A lot's coming. In the next couple of weeks, I have a lot to tell you, but I can just tell you right now, I'm shifting. The podcast is going to be shifting. Social media is going to be shifting. And I'm okay with that because what I really need right now is different and where I am is different. And that means that there's changes. Other than that, I think that's about it. So I ask you to ask yourself, what is it that I really need this moment? And send me a note. Tell me, like, if you got anything from this, DM me, send me a note on social, send me a note in email, send me a note. If this hit to you and you got something out of this, leave a comment go to, iTunes, leave a 5-star rating. Girl, won't be sad about that. Leave a 5-star rating, but give a comment and explain what did you get out of this episode? What is it that you need right now? And what's one little thing you can do? It doesn't have to be this big thing. It doesn't have to be this grandiose thing. Often I think we think of self-care as it has to be this luxurious thing that we're doing. We spend all this money. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't cost me anything to call my friend Tania, and that brings me so much joy. It doesn't do nothing for me to rest in a different way. Resting for me no longer means binge watching TV. I rest in different ways that work for me. And I recognize that there are different types of rest. If you've never listened to the podcast I did on the 7 different types of rest, highly recommend going back to that because there's different types of rest. And when I'm able to realize that, it's not this type of rest I need, but I need this other type of rest, I'm able to pour into me with what I really need now. Love y'all. Know that you are worthy, worthy, worthy of doing what you need. And knowing that you're worthy of switching up your self-care routine when it needs to happen. period. Love you. See you guys next week. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.